Hey, high levelers. In this video, what I really want to do is dive into the Agent Studio and actually begin showing you all of these components and teaching you how they work, at least as best as I can for right now. Now, I've seen several other Agent Studio videos and they're really incredible on just how they go through and show you all these things, but it's great. Tell me what they're used for. Tell me how in the hell do I use them? They just breeze over it and go over this stuff and just, oh, great, look at all this stuff you could do, but never really explaining what it is that you can do. And I've been spending some time here with Agent Studio, more specifically looking at several of HighLevel's Agent Studio templates. And I think they're really good, and I want to use them as an example in this video that shows you some of the components and how HighLevel has chosen to configure certain scenarios to the templates that can help you understand Agent Studio a little bit better. Now, let me tell you right now, this isn't going to be generic. We're going to be diving in and understanding all of the different components, how they're actually used, and how you actually start building things inside of Agent Studio. So if this is going to be a little bit more technical, and if this isn't you, then I'm just letting you know you might get a little bit lost, but I'm going to try to take things slow, and I'm going to be using the examples that HighLevel gives you, simply trying to help you understand how each of the components work based upon the use cases that HighLevel has created inside of their templates. So let's hop in and take a quick look. All right, so here we are, guys. I'm inside of one of my demo accounts, and what I've done is, just to let you know, this is March 2026 at the time of this video. The reason I say that is because the interface and the nodes have changed so much inside of Agent Studio. If you've watched this Agent Studio video, even from a couple of months ago, the user interface might be different because even though, in my opinion, Agent Studio is functional, it's just I don't see a lot of people using it right now because it is quite complicated on some of the more technical aspects. But whenever things become easier, and I'll explain what I mean by that when I get into some of the examples here, then I think more and more people will begin using this. But just one of the things I want to have you absolutely keep in mind is with Agent Studio is not included in the AI employee. For those people that think that they can start using this, practicing and dealing with it, you're going to have to understand that in October of 2025, during the summit, HighLevel released Agent Studio. They also released like the new workflow builder, which kind of gave this new look that we're going to see here. But one of the other things they've also introduced is a new AI pricing model. So Agent Studio is not a part of AI employee. So if you're thinking about the voice AI agents, conversation AI, ask AI, all of those different components that are part of AI employee, Agent Studio is not included in that. So you're going to be paying a token cost depending upon what LLM model you're using. ChatGPT has a certain cost for tokens on 1 million tokens, and it's not a whole lot, but just keep in mind that it is going to be token based, and that if you practice with this, I don't know if HighLevel is giving you so many credits per month, but you might start seeing some charges if you're playing with this, but the charges are going to be minor. You're talking about maybe a couple of dollars to really go through and to test these things. So just please keep that in mind. Now, one of the things I do want to show you is at least Agent Studio. Now, again, you've got folder structures you can create, but in the Agent Studio, you can either create from scratch or browse these templates. Now, these templates are the ones that I'm going to be speaking about today because I think they have good use cases. Rather than me having to build something from scratch, it's better to show you some of the examples that HighLevel has, because this way you can just simply go choose that template, hop into right now and even follow this video over the exact templates that I'm using, assuming they haven't changed them between now and March 2026 and whenever you're watching this video. Okay, so get rid of that. Let's go ahead and start looking at some of these ones that we're going to be looking at here. So I'm going to open up the customer support agent, and we're going to take a look at that one. This is one of the templates that HighLevel has, and it's a relatively simple one. Now, because we're here, I don't want to just hop right into what this Agent Studio is doing. What I want to do is start giving you a breakdown of what some of these nodes are, some of the configuration areas inside of the Agent Studio builder, and what they're used for. Now, this might be, if you've already watched some of the other videos, might be a little bit of a I might be going over some of the same stuff that you've already gone through again, but again, if you haven't watched any of them, I want to at least make sure I understand. Now, here at the very top, if you take a look here, you get obviously the name, but you start having variables, okay? Now, if I had a whole other career in IT, which kind of makes HighLevel a little bit easier for me to understand, but if you're looking at variables, there's different types of variables that you can actually have. Global variables are variables that you're going to be able to sit back and use for anything that happens inside of the Agent Studio. This particular Agent Studio, you can use those global variables anywhere. Now, what would you need a global variable for? Now, wait for me a little bit here. I'm going to get into an example where they deal with converting a YouTube video to a blog. There's actually a good example. It's rather complicated, but one of the great examples in there is how you can store an API token. Now, let me just step back for a second. Agent Studio has the ability in one of the nodes, it's called API call. So now you can actually access and connect to third-party systems using this that you couldn't do inside of a standard workflow, inside of HighLevel, which is great. This is one of the advanced features that they come up with the Agent Studio for. But whenever you access a third-party system, it could be Zapier, it could be, in this case, you're going to see the YouTube Studio, that like the Google search algorithm, and even to access HighLevel itself through Agent Studio, you need an API key. So with that, you're going to have this big old long number, okay? Now, if you have that number, how do you store that number to be able to effectively use it wherever you want? This is where you have global variables. Now, you can sit back and add, if you want to add a new variable, you could just say like HighLevel API key. And it's going to be a string, and you can take that whole string and paste it right there. And now what you've got is now anytime you need to access an API key for HighLevel, you can always go to this global variable where it says HighLevel API key, and then just simply put that global variable inside there to represent the big old long number that you normally get from HighLevel, this big, huge API key that you normally get. So anytime you're dealing with those kinds of keys, you can use global variables as a way to store those. And then you could just simply use that variable any place you need to make the API call. And again, I'm going over things and you're going to start seeing how they all get put together when I start showing you the examples here inside of Agent Studio. So I just wanted to show you what global variables can be used for. Now, input variables. These are variables that you're going to be storing information, like could be a user's choice, a user's decision. We're also going to see how user input variables are used and actually make decisions off of based upon another node that we're going to look at called a router. So again, an input node is just something that you get input from whatever a trigger or a prompt that maybe one of the AI is asking the user for information. That information can be stored inside of an input variable and then used throughout the transaction based upon the decision the person makes. And again, we're going to start seeing that here. Sorry, let me cancel this. I'm going to discard these changes. So those are the variables. Now, global prompt. This right here, I've tried to look, and HighLevel hasn't used any of the global prompt configurations in any of their examples yet. But ultimately, this is like the overall encompassing AI mission. What is the purpose of this Agent Studio workflow? What is the purpose of it? And what should all the other AI agents look for to kind of keep track of? So that's where you put all the global configuration information here. And of course, you can test it. And then here's where you're just simply publishing and deploying your workflows, which we'll look at later. So now that covers the top part of Agent Studio. Let's look at the elements. Okay, these are the building blocks of building everything inside of Agent Studio. Now, first of all, one of the updates that probably you haven't seen yet, if you've watched some of the other videos, is the fact that there are now triggers that you can trigger an actual Agent Studio workflow. Before, it was hit or miss. People were thinking, how do I actually initiate? How do I start this thing? HighLevel didn't really have a great way to trigger these things in the very beginning. Now, again, it's a sort of a learning in progress, and I will let you know the documentation that HighLevel has on this is truly outdated. A lot of the nodes that they talk about in their documentation don't match the current node configurations they've got here. So it was like documentation that is coming out that they already had published, but now the nodes, these nodes, specifically this router node, was reconfigured. They actually took it out of Agent Studio, reconfigured it, and then they gave it a different logo icon so that it was different from the previous router one. So if you look in documentation, that could be a little bit different, and that's confusing too. But I did contact support, and supposedly in April to May, second quarter kind of this year, they're looking to update the documentation for Agent Studio with all of the new nodes that I'm going over today. So let's hop into it and take a look at it here. Now, I'm going to come back to this, but to really sit back and start looking at it, I don't want to mess this Agent Studio up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another Agent Studio from scratch, and I'm just going to call it test, if I could type. So I'm going to open up just a blank one, just so we can start from scratch here. Now, if we look at this, notice that we've got these triggers over on the right. Now, a lot of these are the same type of workflow triggers that you would normally work from. Form submitted, lead tag. So if a tag gets added to a lead, workflows. This is another one. So this is another trigger that you could trigger, because inside of the actual workflow now, there's actually a component that allows you to trigger an actual Agent Studio inside of a regular workflow. I'll try to look at that toward here in just a minute toward the end and show you what that looks like. And then there's the chat message. Now, I'm going to have to warn you about the chat message. This is a little bit of, to me, it was ambiguous. It was like, what the hell do you mean? Chat message. Chat about what? What kind of chat? So apparently, according to HighLevel support, chat message could be any of the normal things that you would normally get chat from, say, Conversation AI. So if somebody sent you an SMS, that's a chat message. Facebook Messenger request, that's a chat message. Live chat communication or a chat bot on a chat widget, that's communication. Okay, so please keep this in mind. If you're going to be using this and you're actually going to select a chat message, this could mean any of the existing chat messages that are currently being configured through the conversation AI piece. Like any of those channels of communications would include a chat message and therefore trigger this particular workflow. And there's no way to specify, at least as of right now. When you say chat message, it will monitor everything. Now, I even ask, what if you have 4 different telephone numbers and each one of those telephone numbers has different SMS messages that can be sent? Keep in mind, if you're dealing with the workflow, you can specify that workflow to respond back on a certain message or certain SMS number to respond back. It doesn't always have to be your default phone number that's on your account. So this is where I'm getting like it. This could really get things messed up if you choose chat message, because it's going to be intercepting everything that comes in and then potentially processing it. So this is one of those ones where I haven't really found a good way to limit what messenger or what type of SMS phone number to limit it to. It doesn't have a limit as of right now. Anything that's a chat message will come across. So please be careful. Okay, so now we've looked at triggers. We've exhausted that. I'm going to simply remove that and come back over here and start looking at these nodes. Now, here are some of the things. I'm going to try to explain this as best I can. I'm going to go ahead and click on an agent, and we're going to go ahead and just save that. Now, I'm going to try to blow this up a little bit. Okay. So notice we start getting all of these different components. We get these little dots. Okay. So the dots can connect. So if you click on here, I can drag that over. And this is a way to connect the trigger to a first agent studio. Now, keep in mind the AI agent really is if you want to think about this, one of the brains inside of Agent Studio. Now, it's not that have to be the only brain, but whenever you link something, you're going to have the AI prompt do something. In a sense, you're going to have to tell the AI agent what you are, what you're planning on doing. And then every time you actually have an AI agent involved or anywhere, you always are going to need a router. That's why this router is so important. In order for you to move from one node to another node, you've got to have a router tool included. Follow me on this and I'm going to help you understand why. Okay. But the AI agent, notice that you've got the agent box and you've got the router tool here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink this back down. I'm going to click on the agent. If I click on the agent, now I get this agent prompt. And I can sit back and expand it here to give you some more room if you want to. But this right here is going to be a prompt as far as what this AI agent does. Ask the user for this. Get feedback. Prompt for something. For some information. Now again, when you do that, it's going to choose what LLM model. Now here, if you take a look, you're still only limited to ChatGPT as of this time, even though inside of the Voice AI Studio, you now can have Gemini and Claude and so forth handle Voice AI. Those changes haven't propagated into Agent Studio yet. Now, I'm going to be upfront. There are some things in here that I don't know. And I'm just going to tell you I don't know because documentation is limited. And I had very limited amount of experience running through these and testing these. Now, here in the mode, you do have to choose it. This is conversation or task-based. I really don't know. HighLevel is pretty much for running everything in conversational mode. So again, I wish I could tell you what the other one is. It says agents perform tasks, but doesn't reply on chat. If that's what it is, then that's what it is. But all I'm telling you is that this right here is just what I know so far. So the agent, this is where you tell it to do something. Okay. And again, please hold in there with me. I'm going to go over several of the examples that HighLevel gives you and then walk you through those and show you. I'm just trying to help you understand the basic components here before we move on. Now, inside of the AI agent, you can have several things included in here. One of which is going to be a router. So if you click on the tool itself, it'll open up a different window to allow you to configure it. So here, inside of the router, there are 2 types of router conditions. You can do based upon intent, meaning you let AI monitor the communication and then make a choice of which way to go regarding how the conversation is going, your positive, negative, that kind of thing. Or you can have conditional routing. Now, the examples we have in HighLevel pretty much deal with conditional routing so far. Okay. So right now, in order to do this, you would have to have a condition, meaning if somebody replied, whether the information is yes or no, or somebody replies back with a certain word, again, we'll take a look. They've got some really good examples of this, but the condition means this is how you're going to choose to move forward. Now, one of the things I do want to show you here is understand if I do add another node here, and I'm going to launch the sequential node because I'm going to talk about it in just a minute, but I want to show you this because this is confusing to me. Notice how the sequential node has a dot right here, meaning I'm allowed to connect something to it, but this right here doesn't have a dot that allows me to connect this AI agent to the next step. So how do I do that? Where is that at? And how do I configure that? Here's the thing. Inside of every one of these nodes, in order to move to the next node, you have to have a router node. You have to have a router tool in there, but the router tool typically is your logic. This is the thing that's going to say, based upon what the user selected, then I'm going to offer a different choice. Consider it very similar to an if-then statement inside of a workflow, where you have, and then you can have multiple branches that will connect off into different areas based upon the input that somebody gives or a condition, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. But if I select this, and if I don't have a conditional router, there are some times where you might want to go from the AI agent directly over into the next node of the Agent Studio, but you don't want to sit back and collect anything, okay? You don't want to do anything quite yet. You just want it to make it pass through. If you do that, you need to select this toggle switch right here that says no conditions. Now, when you say no conditions, and I'm going to save that, now you get this thing that says always. And this is just like a default. But the biggest thing about it is it gives you this little dot. Now, this little dot is how you tell Agent Studio to go from this component to the next one. So this is how you do that. So now I'm able to connect this. And now you start seeing as I can start processing things. Now, inside of Agent Studio, if you don't have something that is connected, okay, it doesn't know what path to take. So this is how a linear progression works. Now, I'm just trying to show you some of the basics here. Hopefully you're okay with it so far. But now that you've gone from Agent Studio and you've gone here, you see how with a router node, if I didn't have a router node here, I could not go from this Agent Studio to the next step. I couldn't do it. And even with Sequential node, I want to move this over. Notice in the Sequential node, there is no black dot on the right side here. So once I go to the Sequential node, I'm stuck. I can't go to the next step without putting a router function in here. But we're going to get there. Now, what is the Sequential node for? Okay, the agent node is to tell, or at least to direct the user on what to do next. What is the purpose of this? How do you want to interact with people? What are you supposed to be? How are you supposed to ask questions or answer questions? What is that based upon the prompt? The Sequential node is different. This is the busy thing. This is where you actually start getting things done. Inside of the Sequential node, it's very similar to action items inside of a workflow. So right now, what are some of the things that go inside the Sequential node? Very good. This is where you start having all of the other nodes that are in here. Flow control, anything that you see over here to the left of a flow control, trigger, end node, router node. This has to deal with, I'm going to move this over. This has to deal with these lines, moving the flow of everything, okay? That's what that has to deal with. Now, I haven't gone over the end node yet. I'm going to hit there in just a second, but you've got a trigger, an end node, and a router. These are all flow controls. But you also have this Sequential node, which is where all the processing takes place. And the great thing about this is, if you remember in a workflow, you have to add an action item, then you have to sit back and add another action item to go to the next step, and then another action item. The cool thing about the Sequential node is that you can sit back and add multiple of these into one Sequential node, and it will process them one at a time. So let's just take a quick look at some of these other things that we've got here. So here we've got the ability to search knowledge base. Again, we're going to look at that. Search the web. Again, we'll take a look at that. HighLevel has several examples of this. The MCP server, not too many examples of this because I really don't understand MCP myself, but I understand it's a third-party server that you can communicate with that will extend the services of this node and do some cool stuff later on. But as of right now, as far as I know, HighLevel doesn't use it in any of their templates. So it's just something that's available. Now, the API call is something that's used. This is something that you will need to make third-party calls out to save data or to get data. And we'll take a look at that. But here's some of the cool things as far as generative AI. You can generate audio, image, text creation, video creation, and then you've got some capture tools. So this right here, where they've tried to build in some very basic information capture devices, so you don't have to build it yourself. So you've got email address, phone number, you can have it make a single choice or even a text message, okay? And again, I'm going over these because these are some of the tools that you can use inside of the Sequential node. So I can drag this over and drop it. Next thing you know, it's going to provide the email address, okay? It's automatically built in with that. The prompt message, provide your email address. This is what you're prompting to the user in whatever form of communication that they're communicating with. Now, right now, you understand if you're going to be doing this, you're going to have to do this over a chat message because otherwise there's no other communication that happens with any of the other stuff regarding if they fill out a form, there's nobody there to respond back. They just fill out a form. So the chat message is the only trigger that really allows user interaction here. So inside the Sequential node, this is where you're going to sit back and it's going to prompt, provide an email address. Whenever somebody does that email address, it's going to create and store that information inside of this variable name. This variable name is one of the ones I told you can be accessed from that top toolbar. So this is a sort of what they call a runtime variable. And then this right here, the error message, it doesn't look like a valid email. Please try again. Okay, so I'm just going to save that. And again, you can simply, didn't mean to do that. Give me a second, guys. So here, if we take a look at the phone number, I could drag this over here. If you have anything besides the email and the phone, you'll have to sit back and do a text input or a single choice. If you have a custom field that you want to update, then you're going to have to do a text field and prompt for the response, like you're going to have to enter. If you have a custom field that's asking for an invoice number, then you're just going to have to say request invoice number here. And then this would just be the invoice number stored in this particular variable here. But all of these nodes are here to process and gather information in a sequential fashion. So it'll get email address, then the phone number, then this capture text, and it'll go down the line. Now, one of the things I want to make sure that you understand, there is still no dot on the right-hand side over here. Notice that. And you won't get a dot unless you actually put a router in here. So you're going to have to drop a router into this node. Everything that's in here, if you're going to move to the next node, is going to need a router node. Now, if you click on the router node, notice that if you don't want it to do anything, if you just want this to capture the text messaging and to move on, then you're just going to simply select no conditions and click save. Now, when that happens, once it completes all these things and it gets down to the very bottom one for the router, it's going to move on to the next step. So you're starting to see how you could put these pieces in place to gather data. Now, please keep this in mind. This is not a full-on tutorial where you're going to really see how these work. I'm going to get over that when we look at the examples here. I'm just trying to help you understand the components. So again, one of the things I want to use is this end node. If you're looking at the end node, that tells Agent Studio this is the end of the workflow to stop. Now here, if we want to do this, all we have to do is just simply click here, move on, and then that's it. So if we take a look at the flow, and I'm going to try to blow this back out a little bit here. We've got a trigger. It goes to Agent Studio to do something, to prompt them. From here, it's going to go to the sequential node to get the email, phone number, custom field value, whatever it is, and then come over here and in the node. Now, that's what this does. But other than that, this workflow is pretty much useless. Why? Because it doesn't save any information. It performs a function, but then when it goes to end node, all of those variables that you stored, the user data, they get erased. Okay, those variables, the user input variables, are only while this workflow is running. When this workflow stops, it hits an end node, all those variables get released from memory, meaning you lose the information. So in order to use the information, this is where you're actually going to have to make an API call. Okay, so I'm going to show you this, but I don't have all the API information. I'll show you high-level SM examples of this. But if you drop this here, okay, inside of the API call, then this is where, and again, I would do this first. If you have a router node here, delete that, have the API call above the router node, because something tells me, I haven't found documentation, but a sequential node, you go from the top node and it works its way down. Now, if you put the API call below the router, then the router is going to send it out and it's going to go out before the API call is made, because it's not going to go beyond the router to the next one below it. Hopefully that makes sense. So what I mean by that is that in order to do this, you want to make sure the router is in the very bottom of the node, always at the very bottom. Okay. That way, everything above it gets processed. If you put something below the router, something tells me it's not going to get processed, but I'm not 100% about that either. So here, if we want to do this, we can connect this back to the end node. And then if we take a look at the API call, now we get a little bit more complicated. So here in the API call, there's multiple different calls we can go call out to. There's get, post, put, all these different things, but just keep in mind, get meaning you're going to reach out to a third-party system using a URL that has to be provided by that API call. And you're going to have an API key, because that key identifies you. You just can't make an API call for free. You're going to have an API key so that now you can authenticate basically to that third-party system to let you know who you are requesting information. And then that then returns the information. When you get that information back, you can then store that into a variable. Okay. So that's information that you can actually store, and that's how the API calls work. Now, if you're taking data and you're putting it, that's a post call. So posting means you're pushing data out to a third-party URL system, again, like HighLevel. And this is one of the things I don't really get looking at the examples. There is no way of inside of Agent Studio that I've seen to save something locally to contact.username. There's not a way of doing that. In order to do this, you're going to have to connect to your own system using an API call where you then post and synchronize this stuff. And again, I don't know what the API call URLs and things like that are, but again, we'll take a look at one example here of how you use that. Okay. Now, I want to show these search functions and some of these other functions on the examples. But for right now, this is all I want to show you inside of here. So let's go ahead and start looking at an example now that we've at least got a basic rudimentary understanding of some of these nodes and what we're looking at here. Now I'm going to open up this customer support KB agent. Okay. Here's a very basic one. And here's how it basically works. You've got a chat message. Somebody's communicating. Your support AI agent. I'm going to click on that and I'm going to open this up. Notice HighLevel has built this so you can actually load one of these inside of your account and then copy and paste this if you want to steal this prompt and then change it slightly. So that's a good way of doing this. So you are a helpful payment support agent specializing in Stripe payment processing. That's just the way they built this. So they have instructions here for how to process this information. This is what the agent node is going to do. It's in conversational mode. Okay. And that's the purpose of this agent. Now, how does this agent do that? How does the agent do and respond with this information here? Okay. One of the things I do want to show you here, and let me find it. Okay. First of all, before I do that, let me show you, there's two pieces on here. There's a knowledge base and then there's a web search. Notice that knowledge base is first, web search is second. I think the order really matters here. Okay. Now this knowledge base is exactly what you would think. Any knowledge base that you currently have configured, and you can do that by uploading documents, tables, all that other stuff that you can normally do for knowledge base. You can sit back and include in here and use that as a way of training and replying to agent responses. Okay. Now notice there's no knowledge base here, but I could select a knowledge base here. Okay. And what it says, you're going to be searching the knowledge base for, try to blow this up. Search the knowledge base for relevant information about Stripe payment fees, refunds, blah, blah, blah. So it's going to look at the knowledge base first is the point. Okay. So it's going to look at the knowledge base first. And if the knowledge base doesn't have it, then look at the support agent. Sorry if I keep blowing this up a little bit here, but it says right here, if the knowledge base does not contain a satisfactory answer, use the web search tool to find current information from Stripe's official documentation. So now you're telling it, oh, let me scroll back over here. So now in the web search, if I click on the web search and come over here, give me a second. Come on. There we go. Sorry, I'm just having a little scrolling thing here with my Mac. I couldn't get back over here. But if we search the web for this, notice that inside of the search documentation, again, try to blow this up, search for real-time information about Stripe on the following documentation, stripe.com/docs and support.stripe.com. So here's an example of a basic chat where all the agent is supposed to do is give information regarding Stripe. There's a knowledge base. If the knowledge base has the answer, it'll reply. If the knowledge base doesn't have the answer, then the support agent then goes to the web search via the instructions given and the support agent, and then searches the support website to try to find an answer and then come back and reply with that. So this is a basic one. I think is a good one because if you're looking for something that just gives you some basic information, then this is a great use case model for being able to use knowledge bases, provide information, and just simply reply back. That's all this does. That's all this agent does right here. So this is a very simple one, and I'm going to exit back and go over another one. So now we're going to go over the lead qualification agent. Now, some of these get a little bit more complicated as we look at them. So notice here, we've got a lot more different nodes. So this right here is one of the things I want to show you. You don't necessarily have to have one simple trigger. Here we've got two triggers, meaning this can come from a chat message, or if we get a lead tag, meaning we put a tag, a specific tag on a lead, then we can click on this, tags added. Now, again, we look at this, the tag didn't come over on this example, but you'll have to choose whatever tag it is. This is just what it looks like whenever the tag's been deleted. So you'll just have to choose a new tag, but either one of those could trigger this agent and then goes into the next step. So notice here, the sequential node, if we click on it, nothing really about this that we need to configure. It's going to go through the phone capture, then captured email. Then this text right here is going to say, what is your company name? So this is a great example of the sequential node of how you can use the captured text and get additional information, even if it's things like custom fields that you want to have populated, you can do that. And we're going to see how all this stuff gets sent to HighLevel. So again, company name, select the next one. What are they looking for? What their need is, very similar to what your problem is with the voice AI agent in there. What are you looking to do? And then finally, you've got approximate budget range. So all of these are questions that are being asked to the person over chat. What is your budget range? Now, because it's gathered all this information, now again, it needs a router. Notice the router set it always, but here there's no conditions. It just means you're going to gather this information, move on to the next node, but you need a router node here to do that, to get this little dot that takes you to the next step. Now, the next step is an agent. So notice right here, first of all, just want to let you know, here's an agent, here's an agent. So there's just that one AI agent in each workflow. You can have multiple agents doing different things at different stages of the workflow here in Agent Studio. So that's another thing I want to make sure you understand. That's just that one agent in here. You can have multiple. So if I click on the agent, it's going to sit back and say, you are a lead qualified analyst. You've collected the following information from the user, their name. And notice if you take a look here where it says runtime, username, runtime user email, the sequential node, this is a variable, a runtime variable. And what it means by runtime variable, meaning that changes every time the workflow starts. Versus a global variable, when you put that API key in there, the global variable will remain the same every execution instance of the workflow. So that's a key value that you have to understand. Runtime values, they disappear and get deleted after that workflow runs one time. And then when you start the new workflow, just makes sense, right? Then you get new values in there the next time it runs. So these runtime are just while the workflow is running, but it collects a username, email, phone, company, and then the user needs. Now, based upon that, the agent is supposed to make a determination. Is this a hot lead, a warm lead, or a cold lead? So here are some of the rules that surround that. So notice the rules. If the email looks fake, test@test.com, asdf@asdf.com, somebody's just typing crap in just to give it something, then put that as a cold lead. Somebody's putting in a fake email address. Right now, there's no email validation that I know about in here. There's no phone number validation like there is on a form or something like that. So nothing that I know of there. If the phone is clearly invalid, meaning it looks like something like this, zeros, it's cold. They're just putting in fake information. So again, once you do all this is what the prompt is supposed to do, is simply determine if this lead is a hot lead or a cold lead. Now, this is where a router is actually utilized. Notice down here, it doesn't say always. So inside of the router node, now there's actually some conditional routing that happens here. So notice this is hot and then not hot. If you click on it, then this right here is where it'll actually come through and get the runtime lead quality, which is the value that HighLevel has come up with, that the agent is going to determine this. So the agent itself is going to say, based upon the information I've collected from the sequential node, is this hot or is it not? So here's where it says, if it's hot or if it's not, notice that we get 2 dots. Again, this is a change I want to specify. The router before, when we did this and we specified no conditions, there's only one. This is always, and this allows you to go to the next sequential node. In this instance, the router is actually making a decision based upon the AI agent. So now there's multiple options, hot or not hot, and the agent's going to determine that based upon the information. Now, because of that, you have 2 choices, very like an if-then statement inside of a workflow. So now you have 2 options, 2 paths that you could take. Let's take a look at this. If it's a hot lead, then what we're going to do is this sequential node, which is the processing node, a worker node, or whatever you want to call it, but this is where the work gets done inside of a sequential node. Okay. Now you could also put something like this inside of an agent node if you want to, but I think the sequential node is built to do the work. So right now we click on this API call. This is where HighLevel actually gives you an API call that you can utilize. I don't know if this is valid, but if you take a look, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to come here and paste this just so that you can see. And if you hit enter, notice that you get this type of message here. So this is some form of an API call, and you're going to have to know what this URL is if you're going to do this. So here's where the post, you're posting to this, and it must have something to do with like contact. If you take a look here, because it has contact.upsert. Again, I don't quite know what that means. It's going to be passing a version, but basically now you have to build this JSON body, which again is a little bit more complicated and for you to deal with, but all this is a way of sending information via a URL. If you ever deal with webhooks inside of workflows, webhooks are the same way. But here you have to build this. This is the thing that kind of sucks, is you're going to have to build this based upon the API URL. The API is looking for certain fields, and based upon that, like it's looking for first name, last name, email, phone, company, the tags, okay, that are in here. So here you're passing first name, last name, user email, all those runtime variables that we saw, you're passing that in. The runtime tags, this is the lead quality. So this is where it's going to be cold-lead, hot-lead, something like that. So that's the tag that's going to come into HighLevel as well as Agent Studio, it looks like. So they're saying this is coming in from Agent Studio and it's a cold lead, or in this kind of case, it's a hot lead because this is the path that came from hot. So it'll be hot lead. The source, Agent Studio lead qualification. So all this information comes in and you're going to have to build this and know how to do this. This is one of the other downsides that are about the complication issue, is you're going to have to know these API call URLs, the JSON tags, and how to map those user variables in there. So anyway, just wanted to show you that. And then once you process this, you've got a router node. And again, there's nothing else that needs to be done. The sequential node just made an API call to send that user data to HighLevel. And then the router says, just proceed to the next one. And then here, proceeding to the next one, it goes to this Agent Studio, which if we take a look here, simply responds back with, thanks for reaching out. So apparently that's what the prompt is. And that's the flow of what this looks like. Okay. Now this is if we're going to the route of hot. Now, if it's not, then guess what? This agent node, again, just says, tell a user, thanks for reaching out. So again, the user gets the same thing, but if it's not a hot lead, if it's a cold lead, then that information just gets dropped. It doesn't get updated and it doesn't get added to HighLevel. So again, what could we take from this? What could we take from this example? What we could take from this example is how you gather user data through the sequential node and through the other tools here regarding phone capture, email capture. How do we do this? And then ultimately, how do we do an API call to send that information over to HighLevel and put that back into your account? So again, do you see when you're dealing with this, it's a little bit more complicated. It's not like just a workflow where you could just save the username into the username field or save it directly into a custom field or a custom value or something like that. You don't have that. You have to make a third-party call from this system, even back into HighLevel itself. So this is how I think things are going to be a little bit more complicated. But as you get used to this, then I think it might be easier for people to use this. I think I messed myself up here, but I was done with that anyway. I'd like to move on to the next one regarding chat with Google Sheet. This is an example. This is a pretty basic one. It reminds me of the very first one, but all this is a chat message where the AI agent is searching a knowledge base, and that knowledge base is just a Google Sheet. Okay, keep in mind, inside of a knowledge base, you could do a web crawler, a web crawl, and then that web crawl could just be the share link that you give your Google document. That's how I do a lot of my knowledge bases. Just share my Google file. That way, if I update the Google file, I can always go in and update that Google document with more Q&As or something like that. And then when I do that, I just have to go to the knowledge base, click on the refresh button. It goes out, looks at the file again, and brings on all the new information. But anyway, if you take a look at the AI agent here, all it's doing is just really utilizing the search knowledge base to answer questions and return values. Okay. Now, the cool thing about this, if you click on the search knowledge base, this is what the tool does. Instructions. When a user asks about leads or any lead related questions or statistics, the response should be the following. So it's going to go to this knowledge base, which apparently the Google Sheet has all this information, but it's going to return the lead ID, the name, email, phone. So you're basically telling it all the values inside of a knowledge base that you want to return back to the user, not just the lead's name and the lead information. If it says, hey, I'm looking for a lead regarding Ray O'Daniel, my name. So if you're looking for that, then go search for the name Ray O'Daniel. And when you give the information back, give the lead ID, the name, email, if that lead exists inside of the knowledge base. So that's what this is doing here. So it's pretty cool if you want to do something like this. Guys, if this is valuable, if you guys are picking up some things and actually starting to understand how this works, smash that like button, man. Help me out. Smash it. Leave me a comment saying, Ray, this is awesome. You the man. No, I'm actually not the man. I'm just trying to help you guys understand this a little bit. But I'm having some fun here because Agent Studio is one of these new tools that people just don't quite know how to use until somebody can sit back and walk them through a few examples and say, hey, I can do that. Let me pull this example and I can use some of the stuff inside of the examples to build my own. So this is just why I'm doing this. I'm walking through all the examples. Now, the next one here is by far my favorite one. This is something that's more of an N8M kind of thing, or these things that you would see about how to take a YouTube video and translate that to a blog. So this is pretty cool, I have to admit. So whoever came up with this, notice that it's a lot more complicated, but as long as you know the basic components, it shouldn't frighten you. You can walk your way through it. Now, we're starting here with a chat message. Again, we've already talked about that. We're going to the first AI agent. We're going to click on that. This says, ask the user for the YouTube video URL. Okay, so as soon as they do that, give me a YouTube video URL. Oh, whenever you do that, here's what's happening. The router, if we take a look here, now says, if this exists, and this is pretty cool. I didn't know it could do this, but you're actually putting in this variable, which is the runtime variable for the YouTube video URL. And you're saying, if this exists. So this is pretty cool. This router is now going to go out and check the video link to see if there's something there. And if it is, then it's going to move forward. And if not, then it won't. So again, notice that it says valid YouTube video here is there. So this is where you can simply, now that you've got a decision, it says if it exists, then it moves to the next sequential node. Now, I'm going to have a little bit of fun right here because this example didn't include this, but I'm going to come here to this router and I want to sit back and have some fun. So I'm going to come here and take this, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to add a condition. And I'm going to put it right in here. And I'm going to say if it exists, but I'm going to choose if it doesn't exist. What if this video doesn't exist? And click Save. Okay, and when I come over here and click Save this, oh, looks like it didn't really save. Or let me rephrase that. I put it in the wrong spot. Let me select all, copy this again. So sorry, didn't mean to add it. I meant to add the condition here. My fault. So I'm going to add a condition out here. And I'm going to choose if it doesn't exist. Just can't exist. And then I'm going to click Save. And now I've got two options here. So notice now I've got two dots. So now, if I wanted to, I can simply have it go and connect somewhere else. So I can do something like a sequential node here. If I wanted to, drag this over to here and sit back and have actually not a sequential node here. Let me remove that. This is where I would need to have I need more of a brain here. So I would need an agent here. And inside the agent, I would just say request from valid to video. So just playing with this, just having some fun. So now I'm just like, that's what I'm going to tell the agent prompt to sit back and prompt it. So I'm going to sit back and again, I need the router. I'm going to click on the router, go to conditional routing, just say no. So here, it could be weird here. Just take a look at it here. I'm going to say does not exist, drag it to this agent node. And then I'm going to come back and take this point and I'm going to drag it back around to the beginning. So it looks weird, but if it doesn't exist, then the agent's going to say, oh, hey, that's not a valid URL. And it's going to request a person, give me a valid YouTube video. So if they keep mistyping it or pasting it wrong and the YouTube doesn't exist, it's going to keep asking them and asking them until they get it right. I thought that was pretty cool. So that's just something else that you could, again, continue to add and change in here. But now that you've done something like that, let's just say they finally give a valid URL. Then what happens? So now you're going to make an API call. And notice this API call is going to be calling. I wanted to show you this because this right here, looks like a Google SERP API. So this is something dealing with Google that apparently if you are registered and you sign in and you have your own API key, you could request information regarding some of their documentation. So what it's doing here is it's sitting back and it's going to that. And I'm going to sit back and see if I could do this. Copy this information and see if I do a new document here. I just want to show you what this looks like here. If it's hard, I can't really do it, but if I blow this up, man, this is challenging here. So fine, I'll highlight everything and make it super big here. All right, so I'm calling this, then I'm calling the YouTube engine, the YouTube video transcript engine, which is pretty cool. And then I'm passing it this video and I'm passing it in the runtime video of the video URL. So right now, this is pretty cool. So you guys might want to do this. I thought I might do this myself. There might be some cool things to do in a future video, but you're passing in the video now that you know this URL is valid, it exists. So you're sending that over. And then you're saying the language is going to be EN for English. I'm assuming that's what it is, or you can make this something else if you want. But then here's what I want to show you. The API key. This is where you're using the global variable. And I'm going to show you that it is, but this is where I want to take a minute and say, this is where global variables are utilized, where you can actually have the global API token and then use that like you can here in all of the API calls that you might want to make to this particular SERP API. So now that I've gone through all that, I'm going to sit back and cancel this out, come over here to variables, and then show you inside of here, there are several different variables. Location ID. Again, this location ID, if you don't know, my guess, they don't have a value here, but this is your sub-account location ID. Okay. So if you're going to be pushing data into HighLevel, you're going to need to have one of these at a global level because you need the location ID in order to use the API, because the API is making a call to HighLevel. HighLevel then has to know what that location ID is, which is why support always asks you for it. So they can put that in there and then find your very specific, unique sub-account that then you can specify, okay, this is my location ID. And then besides my location ID, you will also need this. Notice they have GHL API token. This is the API key that gets generated inside of your account that allows third-party access into your account. So not only do you need location ID, but you'll also need the HighLevel token, I'm sure, in there, which is why they have it in here. I thought it was a great example, and I just want to take it a minute and show it to you. But I also want to show you this SERP API token about how you can use global variables inside here. And again, the global variables, once you configure them, they're always in here. And no matter what you do inside of the workflow, add or remove nodes, you can always use those global variables anywhere you make a call, not a phone call, but an API call. So hopefully that makes sense. Perfect. So now we're going to make an API call. I don't exactly know what this is going to get, but this API response, if you look at the router here, for the edit router, you're going to sit back and get a response. This is going to be a runtime YouTube data response. I'm assuming at this particular point, you're getting the transcript back. So you're giving a video URL, and then what you're getting is YouTube's behind the scenes transcription of that video. Keep in mind, anytime you do this with YouTube, if you don't know, YouTube is transcribing that video as well. You can also upload your own script if you want to, but that script is different than the one YouTube has behind the scenes because YouTube doesn't trust your video translation. It does its own. So I think that's what it's calling here, and it's getting that entire script, that entire video transcript back into here. And then what's happening is now you're getting another AI agent. Let's take a look at this. And again, I'm going to open this up. It says, you are a world-class content editor. Task, read the runtime YouTube data. And here we go. Let me blow it up here. Runtime YouTube data. So all that data that just came back, read it, extract all the text from the transcript field, convert it to a blog article following the writing rules below, extract. I just thought this is pretty cool. This is a pretty cool example they came up with. So again, some of the critical rules, writing rules, and things like that. So keep in mind when you're doing this, depending upon the link, this is where the token cost comes in. Because if you guys can imagine, videos that are like this video is going to be a long video because I'm doing a lot of explaining, and hopefully you guys get a lot of value out of this. And if you haven't smashed that like button now, please. Thank you. Appreciate it. So this is a pretty cool example. So here's how you can get that data, and it's going to convert that to read all the text. And again, the router is not making a decision here, okay? Because the router is just simply passing it through. Now that the agent is going to read it, now what is it going to do to it? So now you've got a single choice. The single choice is that pops back up. And again, this is an article. So you're going to, here's what happened so far. You're in a chat. The AI agent asks you for the video URL. You give it the video URL. It's going to check to make sure it's valid. It's going to make an API call to the SERP API, whatever. It's going to get the transcript, read it, and then the agent's going to, after it read it, it's going to sit back and give you a choice. Yes, do you want to publish the blog? Or no, just show me the post. Which option do you want? So if now that comes back to the user saying, what do you want to do? So now it's yes, post a blog, or no, you don't. So these are the different choices. Now, once you make that choice, okay, notice that we're using this other option down here that I didn't use before, single choice. So you're giving it a choice, yes or no. And then based upon that, now the router can sit back and say, okay, let's make a routing rule. This is where the intent comes in. Remember, before we were using conditional logic. We're not using conditional. We're letting the AI determine the intent based upon what somebody replies back with. If the user has chosen to publish the website, click here. If the user has chosen to see the blog post before, then choose the other option. So now you've got two branches. So now let's just say if they want to publish, they come over here to this sequential node, the API call. Now it's going to connect to get. It's going to do a get request to get data. And this is going to be coming from HighLevel. So again, a big web request and things like that for, if I take a look at this, copy it. And let me see if I can pull this up here. And anyway, if we got this is a big long request that came in. And again, this right here uses the global.location ID to do this. So again, this gets a little bit more complicated, guys, but it's making another call into HighLevel. And then from there, it's going to come to an AI agent where it's going to be, okay, task, extract the blog ID from this runtime blog post data. So it looks like that's going to create a blog post, and it's going to send all this JSON data that you saw, and it's going to pass that directly through from the AI agent. Now that's going to come over here to an image generator. So again, if we look here, we'll see more of this, but some of the cool things that can be done over here, generate audio, image generation, text generation, or video generation. So all of those are perfectly things that we could do. So we're going to do an image creation because we need to create an image for the featured image of the blog post. So again, without going through all this, you're using this DALL-E model here on this one. If I'll move myself out of the way. So notice that we're doing this image creation over here. Your job is to create an image that captures the essence of this blog article. And again, you're using the DALL-E model here to do that. All of that stuff's within your, looks like it's creating the image. Then over here, it's using this to update the existing HTML. Here's another one for an API call that's going to send this information back. The image, the location ID, all this information back to HighLevel. The router is going to simply pass this through, and the agent here is going to sit back and says, successfully posted the HighLevel blog. Thanks for using our service. So that's not bad. I have to admit, when I saw this one, I thought this was, like I said, my favorite. Was just a pretty cool way of sitting back and using this to use third-party API calls, get the transcript. Once it got the transcript, create a blog article in HighLevel using an API call, got an image, the featured image, use the model. You don't get to check what the image looks like. You're just taking the word for it. But once the image is created, it's passing that along with all the text, create the blog article, get it posted. Boom. That's how you can use AI agent to do this. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. And some of the cool things that I think are about this is not only if you're doing this, but you can actually have this happen inside of a workflow. You can actually call something like this and maybe even pass data into this from a workflow. But anyway, this is by far my favorite one out of all the ones that were here. And just some of the other ones I want to take a note of here. These are just some other different examples I thought were pretty cool. So here, I'm going to blow this up. Another chat message. We're going to have a sequential node where we just have a single choice. It's going to ask, please select how you would like to generate the birthday greeting. And again, this is a birthday greeting, it looks like, and to give it a choice, video, audio, image, or text. Which one? How do you want to create that? And the purpose of this is just to utilize the features that you see over here on the left using these nodes. Because here's the audio, image, text, and video. So based upon that, the router now says, okay, it has conditional routing here. This is a way, before we use intent-based routing, again, this is a great way that you can use conditional routing if you want to, based upon what the user selects. So if they select user video, then this is going to equal video. So the value is going to be set, the runtime value is going to be set to video. If they select audio, it'll be audio, text, image. Okay, so whenever they do that, then based upon which one they select, then if they select, it looks like user selected video, then it's going to route up here to this sequential node that's going to do the video generation. And then the video generation has a video prompt about, if we open this up, create an 8-second cinematic video that says happy birthday from CRM Pros or whatever you want to do. Pretty cool, but this is some really good examples that you can utilize if you take a look at this, and you could put this into your own agent workflow and just, again, use this as a way of creating this. And again, if you look at the model, you could choose a different model, aspect ratios, resolutions, which are pretty cool. Okay. And then right now, whenever you do that, that video is returned back to the particular user. So again, if we take a look here with just minimizing this, notice that the chat message is going to say, okay, when it comes in, a chat happens, it's going to prompt them with a question, which way do you want to do this? And based upon that, it's going to give them the response back, either video, image, text, whatever. I just thought it was pretty cool. So you can look at each one of these for audio, and it just says create an 8-second audio that says happy birthday from CRM Pros. So this right here would be another good one. Again, you can use whatever model you want, and then that is stored in this particular variable name, which is pretty cool because now you could do that to do an API calls, even send that out to another system, or I don't know, put it to your Google Drive for all I know. So all these are pretty cool examples that you have within HighLevel, but hopefully by now you're getting an idea of how you can begin using this. So I think the rest of these are pretty straightforward and easy. Here, if you take a look, this is just a chat message that does very similar to what we did before. It just simply answers questions based upon a knowledge base. And then based upon a certain knowledge base, if the person is satisfied with the answer that they received, then the router basically just says, okay, it sends them out here and goes to the end node, and then the conversation, the workflow ends. So this goes back to where person can ask a question. The question says, hey, this works. Is that good enough for you? No, that's not good enough. I want more. It'll ask again, or go back and try to find additional information. But again, that's what this is. And the whole purpose, I think, of this one is just so that you can see once you are satisfied, or you get to a point where you don't need to keep that workflow open anymore, how do you close the workflow? How do you end it? How do you stop it from running so you don't have all these open workflows still opening in the background? Because I'm sure at some point, HighLevel is going to have to cancel these workflows if they're not doing anything. But anyway, this is a great way that you can send it to an end node and be done. And I think there's just one more here I'll take a look at here. I'm not sure exactly what this is. So this looks like very similar. Let's look at the agent. Agent says you are a content generation agent capable of producing image, video, audio, or text using the tools available to you. Your model configuration, style, tone, parameters is already preset in your tools. So here's where you're already configuring the tone and stuff like that inside here. So it just looks like whatever it is, you're just using the different tools to generate that. So it's, again, another very similar to what we've already saw before. So hopefully you guys picked up and learned a few things. And I know going through here, I did. But the biggest thing that I want to sit back and make sure that we understand is just inside of here. Because whenever I look at a tool like this myself, I'm thinking, what are the building blocks and how do I use those building blocks to create something bigger than just a building block by itself? So now if we just summarize these real quick, AI agent, this is when you need to program or have a reply back, or you need an interaction with a particular contact. Sequential, this is the worker. Just like you just load the sucker up and it does this, does this, processes this, creates a video, does whatever it needs to do. But this is what the sequential is for. It's going to go down that list, and eventually the router at the bottom now is going to go to the next step, or to possibly go to an end node. Because if the whole point is to generate a birthday, and then once the birthday thing is generated, go to the end and have an end node. Okay, that was one of the things that didn't happen last time that I guess ultimately you should, because I think in any of these, you should have an end node on all the endpoints, just so that you know that something is going to exit and end and not stay open. Okay, so flow control, triggers, we've talked about those. We've got a couple of triggers right now: chat, web form, workflow, and I'm going to try to real quick hop into the workflow and show you that one real quick too before this video ends. I really appreciate you hanging there with me. Guys, if you stayed this long, then you've really probably learned a lot here. But we've got an end node. There's nothing else to configure. The end node is just where it stops. The router, this is the decision. So you can have intent-based routing, you can have conditional-based routing, or you can have no conditions and just have it be a pass-through. Those are the 3 different ways of configuring the router here that you can configure. We've looked at search knowledge base. And again, we don't necessarily just have to have one knowledge base, okay? Keep this in mind. I can simply come over here and drop this on here. I could drop it again. I could drop it again. So I can have this search, this knowledge base. I can have it, I'm expanded out so I can't see it. But you can have it search multiple knowledge bases. Then if that doesn't work, you can have it search the web. And the web, by the way, could actually be go search HighLevel. Go search HighLevel's help document inside of there. That could be another option that you build in there as well. MCP server, I don't know. I don't like to talk like I know stuff and I don't. So I don't know about that one, but I'm sure that's going to be used later on. The API call, we've already seen how you can get and post data. So that right there is going to be important information, but you do need the web call URIs. You do need your location ID. You do need to have your API key. And if you're doing API calls, it's best to use global variables where you store those API keys. And I would even dare say the URL in there. You could probably store that whole API URL in a global variable that just says like YouTube cert API. So if you ever need to keep making multiple calls to that, you don't have to keep copying and pasting that URL all over the place. But that would be a cool use of that. Here you can generate audio. And again, audio has different options on what model you want to use for that. Image creation, we saw DALL-E 3 in there. We didn't do text generation, but we just saw video generation. What video, what resolution, what widescreen. So if you want to create video for a social media post, that would be pretty cool to say, hey, I want to create social content and have something that just goes out and triggers, starts, runs, gets you a video that you could generate in social media based on an input topic. And then that comes back as a video that you could save and then post to Social Planner for your client. That might be pretty cool too. Video generation. But then here's all the capture information. I think email and phone number are by default. I think you're probably going to see more of these come up with some of the default stuff inside of HighLevel. But for right now, email, phone number is one of them. Again, if you want to ask people a question, the single choice, yes, no, which way do you want to have this, video, audio, text, whatever. And then text input. Text input is whatever you want it to be. Company name, custom field, anniversary date, kid's name, kid's birthday. It could be anything that you want, as long as you have information inside of that API call so that when you send it over, it can then map that to a particular custom value. You can simply do that. So those are ways of gathering, and these are the tools and the building blocks that you can use to build these workflows. So hopefully you found it useful. If you did and you haven't, smash that like button. I know you've learned at least 5 or 10 different things in this video. Smash that like button, leave me a comment. Let me know if you have any questions regarding this, and I'll try to get to it. But thanks so much for hanging in there with me. I appreciate it. And just let me know if this is one of the better videos that you guys have seen regarding the AI Studio or the Agent Studio and actually showing you how to build stuff and what things are and how things work. That was the purpose of this video, and I hope I accomplished it. Have a great day. Bye-bye.